everyone. Happy New Year. Yes, this is coming out in the New Year, Jeff. We're doing it before Christmas, but it's coming out in a couple
Awesome.
weeks. Jeff Friedman is coming to us from Tennessee here today. Long lived funeral director, has done a bunch of stuff throughout the industry in different ways, has owned his own funeral home. Now he's with Park Lawn, has a ton of knowledge, and has a lot of experience doing some interesting marketing ideas for the funeral homes that he's been at. A lot of good business things that we can pick up here today. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, we're going to dive deep into it, and then everything else in funeral service. So Jeff, how you doing today? What's going on?
Doing great. Don't have any snow yet, so we're doing solid. We're ready for Christmas, though.
Yeah, Tennessee, you're not going to have it. Actually, it's supposed to be 50 something here in Chicago, which will be a nice
That's
treat
beautiful. Yeah.
next week, that's for sure. How do you like it down in Nashville? What's going on down there? What do you got going?
Nashville's actually probably one of the best funeral markets I've been in. There's
Really?
going through so many changes right now. Um, the conglomerates have really come in strong in the last several years.
Yeah.
So it's really neat to see how this state adjusts to what used to be pretty much an untouched state, with the exception of Service Corporation International.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. Why do you think people have gone so heavy into the Nashville and all of Tennessee? What is it that the corporations are seeing, and what changes have you seen since you've been there?
Yeah, I think just like any other town, the population growth, the amount
Yeah,
of transplants is tripling and bringing all new industry and professions here.
sure.
So it really is a great market to be a part of. It's still one of the more reasonable markets financially to
Yeah.
live in,
Hmm.
although every day that tends to drop a little bit more. But so it's really just been interesting to watch multi-family, multi-generational funeral homes be sold to corporations with the family still active in the funeral home. This isn't,
Yeah.
people aren't selling and then getting out. They're selling and staying in.
Yeah. What
So
do you
it's been really
think?
cool to watch.
What do you think the reasoning is for that? Like, I understand it, but I'd like to know from your point of view, or at least I would understand if, like, my family were to ever go down that road. I would totally understand and be like, this would be a good option potentially for you. So tell me
Yeah.
from their point of view why that's something that a lot of people are seeking nowadays.
I think COVID played a big role in the growth of any of the conglomerates.
Okay.
But I think one thing that really changed for me and with my own business is with the price wars, and you're no longer competing against the funeral home down the street. You're competing against Google,
Yeah.
and hospices are probably our biggest competition. I kind of got to the point where I either need to decide who I'm going to buy or who I'm going to sell to.
Yeah.
And decided the best thing for me to do, and I think other families are realizing the best thing to do is sell and
Yeah.
still serve that community that they love, but financially the headache's gone. I mean,
Right. It's that overwhelming amount of pressure, and I know that my family has felt it for a long time too. It's you need to perform, and that can weigh on you when all you're really trying to do at the end of the day is to help your families as best as you can. It's challenging to do all the different little aspects that takes to run a business, and at the same time be in the prep room, meeting with families, going on funerals. You get
right.
pulled so far apart, and I think that's something that you could really relate to too. So tell me about
Yeah.
that. That'd be awesome.
Well, I tell you what, one thing is you and your family could work so hard all day in the prep room, making that removal at 2 a.m., meeting the family, delivering the best service. But to put it bluntly, there's some schmuck like me down the road who has a great website but no facility.
Yeah.
But I'm able to hide that through other pictures on my website, my
Yeah.
messaging.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, I'm $895 versus your 2 to 3,000.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the consumer doesn't know the difference.
Right. Right.
And most consumers aren't going to know they're getting a bad deal until they're halfway through it,
Yeah.
because they haven't done this before.
Yeah. It's so hard because people oftentimes, we all know this, we're dealing with someone that may have never gone through a loss before, so
Yeah.
they're not as knowledgeable as maybe someone that has. I think there is a good thing that there's been a lot more of a knowledgeable consumer especially the past probably 5 or 10 years, you can find any sort of information you could ever ask for. And that's helping some people, but still, you can definitely window wash, is the way I would put it, where it's like
Right.
there's a mask where you don't know what's really going on. And that's really challenging for a small family funeral home or any small firm. Like, how do I distinguish myself? I'd love to know
Yeah.
your take on that.
Well, one thing I do, whenever I do a hospice talk, you always have to supply lunch to get in front of any hospice
Of
group.
course.
Food's the magical thing. But I always set up 2 bottles of water. One, just a generic Kroger brand bottle of water, and then I set out Fiji water.
Okay.
And sure enough, as I'm talking, I'll notice that every hospice person has a bottle of Fiji water in front of them.
No kidding.
So here's the deal. The water's the water, just like cremation's cremation, but yet they chose the $2 bottle over the 99-cent bottle.
Yeah.
So it is about packaging. It is about reputation.
Mm-hmm.
It is about uniqueness. So I really try to find different methods to show we make irrational brand loyalty decisions every day.
Right.
And we trust that better looking bottle, the square bottle.
Yeah.
So that funeral home that's been around generations, we've come to trust them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we can't allow that Kroger brand water to become your referral just because the family doesn't know who to choose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all about branding and the way you're putting yourself in the marketplace and the way people, every single person coming through your door is something that you're in essence advertising to in a roundabout way. So if you're able to do things in a way that's going to impress people just walking through your door, they're going to remember that, and they're going to, if the time ever does come, it could be 10 years down the road, they could potentially remember that and say, hey, this is where I want to go. I don't want to go to generic. I want to go to some place that is in front of the people and they're doing the right things and they're running it the right way. That's the big difference. You got to think about it like your clothing too. It's the same thing. I can buy this t-shirt and it'll have no brand on it and that's worth 99 cents, but they put a little swoosh on the left chest and now it's worth $29.99. So it's the same sort of thing. We have to be able to put ourselves in the marketplace and say, we are a high-end brand. We are the ones that are going to give you the best service and it's going to be quality. You can guarantee it. That's what the little trademark, that little thing, it means everything. It's a 30X thing.
Yeah. And I know I'm going to be the most hated funeral director for saying this.
Let's do it.
The consumer doesn't care if you're independently owned or not. The only people that care if you're independently owned are other funeral homes.
Interesting. Okay.
Because the consumer is not going to Ace Hardware down the street anymore. They're going to Home Depot.
Yeah.
They're not going to the local grocery store. They're going to Kroger and Publix.
Yeah.
And Jewel. The idea of brand is exactly what you were just talking about. How do you get your uniqueness and your brand out there on something relevant to them?
Right. Yes.
And I'm not bashing privately owned funeral homes. I think they're great, but they have more to advertise than independently owned. I remember my father one time somebody asked him how his boys were doing, and he said, "Oh, my oldest one's doing great in football. My other one has great grades, and Jeff, well, he's breathing." And I'm like, wow, if that's the best compliment you could give me, I've done something wrong. So if the only thing you have to advertise is family owned, and that's your brand, that's a hard thing to sell to someone.
Yeah. Yeah. I see both sides to it, of course.
Yeah.
The brand that's something that it's a relatable thing. It's a confidence thing, especially when someone's going through a loss. They want their loved one in the best care possible. So if you have that association like you'd have at your funeral home with Park Lawn, whoever else, it doesn't matter what firm, like they're all working on branding these things, it gives them that confidence. At the same time, I do see the other point of view where people are like, I want to have that family firm take care of me because it's that love, it's that connection. They feel like they're going to have care. But with you, for example, you have sort of a combination between the two things, which I think would be the best of both worlds situation, maybe.
Yeah. So I personally, our value is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Our value is what we do and how we treat the family. And I think I'm a great funeral director and independently owned, and I think I'm a great funeral director corporate owned.
Yep.
Because in my heart, I'm going to treat each family the same, whether policy or quotas or anything.
Yeah.
But I think where I really shined as independent was I really promoted our uniqueness.
Okay.
And that's hard to do. And I learned it from watching these two fence builders. There's a great story about two guys that have a company that builds fences.
Okay.
And one of the guys has over 75% of the market share.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out how. And he's like, well, it's easy. I tell families I use stainless steel nails. And the other guy goes, we all do.
Everyone
you have
does.
to use that. He's like, it doesn't matter. I tell people I use it.
Wow. In the littlest
and
thing.
That's how he got the trust. So it's you got to shout your uniqueness and make it special to them.
I love that. It's a perfect transition too, because I want to talk about some of the things you've done in your career that are different and unique to your funeral homes that you own and you worked with. So tell us some of those experiences that you had to distinguish yourself and show the industry in a different way, because you have to separate yourself in some way, shape, or form. You can't just be doing the same old thing that you've done for 40 years. It won't work forever. Like, it won't. We know it deep down, but it's just the easy route sometimes. And I understand it because we're so freaking busy every day doing the stuff. So, but anyway, I could go on a tangent on that forever. Let me hear some of the stories and things that you've had to promote your funeral home.
Well, let me tell you, I became a funeral director because I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, and my dad wouldn't allow me to do that. I had to go to college, so I took all death courses to make him mad.
And now you're cracking jokes in the arrangement room.
Right, and now I've found the funeral profession through all that. But so when it came to advertising my funerals, I really took a different approach. I kind of took the Chick-fil-A method of we were a funeral home that promoted life. And we wanted to be around where people weren't expecting us. So
and no visitations on Sundays.
What's that?
And no visitations on Sundays, the Chick-fil-A way.
But, so we knew we had to be a little bit louder, a little bit crazier to get noticed. We didn't have any heritage behind us. So I really started looking at what people were paying attention to. So as soon as the Bitcoin thing came out, I tell you what, we put news release after news release out that we're the first funeral home to accept Bitcoin as payment.
Love it. Genius.
The great thing is, I didn't even know what Bitcoin was, how much it was worth, or anything. Like, had a family come to me, I would have no idea. But the media loved that.
Bit what?
Yeah. So we were constantly looking for different angles of what to keep us, in front of people.
Right. Yeah. What are some other things? I guess maybe I want to talk about that one first, because that's really smart. It was all the talk for a long period of time. Obviously, it's still very prevalent, but even more so when there was that big boom, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago, at whatever point it was.
Yeah.
What would you have done if someone actually came up to you and like, yo, I got 5 Ethereum. What can you do for me?
Yeah, I would have been on Google right away. What's this worth? Not knowing anything about it. But you know what? At that time, if I could have turned it into a media thing, I would have done it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
When I remember Domino's came out with a big ad that they were going to deliver pizzas via drone.
Right. Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
And within days, I had an FAA license to deliver cremated remains via drone, even though I didn't own a drone. I've never flown one, nor had any interest in flying one.
They're zipping around all around Nashville, cremated remains just sprinkled all over everyone. It's raining cremated remains.
But we had to stay relevant to people. And we did do the traditional advertising. We advertised in the newspaper.
Yep.
But we advertised in the sports section and in the business section. We didn't go with the traditional obituary page.
Smart, yeah. What were your ads? I'm sure you had some unique creative ones if you're in different areas.
In the sports section, not only did we advertise free parking at our funeral home, but we also had, you couldn't do it today, but like ladies that just had the sign saying, check out our ashes. Stuff that made people stop and think.
Yes.
Did they really just say that?
Yeah.
And we knew it was a great ad if people called and complained. We did the Howard Stern method. The more people that complained, the more we were killing it. It was awesome.
I'm totally with you on that. I was
Yeah.
just I was with a good buddy last night, and he actually works in sports. He does a lot of the advertising in game, like commentary, things like that. And he said the same exact thing. He's like, we would rather someone have like a crazy reaction, like this is stupid, like what are they doing, than somewhere in the middle that's very vanilla. No one's gonna think, second guess, even bring it to their mind ever again. So he said you
Yeah.
have to do stuff that's going to showcase your work and be different, be unique.
Right. And I mean, any way we could, whether at we had business cards that had our logo on one side and on the other side said, someone just made your day more distinctive and paid for your drink. And we started, pay it forward lines at drive-throughs, at Starbucks, at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And these cards just became, people were calling us for them.
No kidding.
So it was
That's a
just
good
neat
idea.
to watch people's reactions to some of the crazy stunts we did. But
Yeah.
let me tell you, we could have done those stunts and nobody would have ever noticed us.
Mm-hmm.
But we were smart enough to hire a PR firm. We were smart enough to hire a web company.
Yep.
To handle social media, because we didn't know what to do beyond the idea.
Yeah. The execution, the follow through.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing was, not only was I creative enough to have the ideas, I was stupid enough to try to do them. But I had people in the background really promoting it and making it more than it really, set out to be.
Sure. Yeah. It's
And
everything.
go on.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
We really interrupted the markets of Houston and Dallas. We proved that through great advertising, and a lot of it grassroots. A lot of our advertising was done until the police came and asked us to move. But if we were able to show we could interrupt the market and gain volume over it.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part was now figuring out how to match my high standard of service, because I love what I do, with a competitive price.
Right. Yeah.
That's where this all kind of circled the toilet. I love this profession. I love what funeral directors do and the ability they have to serve their communities.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people say, why are you 3 times the cost of someone else? It's because I have to be, because this is my level of care.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do all that at $8.95.
No. There's no
I just couldn't make it happen.
No. If you want that level of care, it takes the extra personnel, it takes the extra effort. There's plenty more costs that go behind it, and it's a lot of stuff is behind the scenes that people don't see, but they're going to feel it. That's the difference. Is they're going to feel that difference. I wish it's so challenging from our point of view, because I'm as well a big proponent of the high service, higher cost. That is my thing. I think that's the way we need to be, because people are going to come in and have a good experience, as opposed to, like, if we're on that lower cost, we have to cut our budget. We have to do things as quick as possible, as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
And we have to skimp, and like that gives people a sour taste in their mouth. Then the whole funeral industry, like, people talk about, because they have this sour taste. And it's unfortunate that we can't have a family go side by side and be like, this is what would be different. If you went down this path with your loved one, this is the difference you would go based on where you choose and the services you choose. And it's so hard to articulate that, but you have to as best you can.
And now we've done it to ourselves again. And in so many ways we've hurt ourselves. But when I go to conventions or when I meet other funeral professionals, their first question is, how many calls a year do you do?
Always.
That is the first question.
Yeah.
I've never once been said, hey, what's your revenue?
Right. And why don't we do that? We're businesses.
That.
Why? I don't understand. Like, why do we do that? Who cares? Like, if you're charging, Jeff, like you're saying, $8.95, I don't give a hoot. If you're doing 300, okay, you're doing 300. I can do the triple the level of work in better in every way, and I can do less than 100 and make the same amount in revenue, and I'm probably going to take home more too profit wise, because you have to skimp at every dollar. You're trying to make $57
Right.
on every call, where I'm trying to make 2 grand on my cremation or whatever it might be. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. And
Kills
so
me.
it's just not, it's a recipe for disaster. These
Yes.
companies that are doing it online and have great advertising online, they're only as good as their last Facebook post, because 5 postings later they're going to be forgotten about.
Yeah.
If they ever stop spending money, they're out.
Yeah.
Um, as to our funeral homes like your families, you already have reputation, you have foundation. So all you could do is just make it even more unique, even stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your social media is even more important.
Keep building. Right.
Yeah.
I don't want people to get me wrong. Like, it's to each their own. Like, if you are doing the cremation society route like that, there's families that need that service. Like, there's families that are financially strapped that they need that, and that's it's a great thing. I'm talking, this is a personal preference thing from a business point of view.
Right.
To me, it's a no-brainer which route that you need to go. And honestly, sometimes it's tough to not get stuck in the middle, because we all have big hearts, and that's
Yeah.
the majority of us got into funeral service because we have that right here. So it's like, we don't want to charge so much because we don't want it to be something challenging on the family. They're already going through a hard time, so it's really hard to charge those prices. But you at the same time, you don't want to do them a disservice by not performing our absolute best, because we have to
Yeah.
hold back in different ways, shapes, or forms because of our prices. It's a full, it's a challenging line that we face, especially with the line of work that we do. It's like the
Right.
most challenging. We all know
And,
we hate asking for that credit card at the end of your arrangements. Everyone hates doing it. It's not a
yeah.
fun conversation, but it needs to be had. We're running a business after all, and that's okay. That's a good thing. That way we can serve
Right.
better.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because I have a lot of friends that have, value sensitive funeral homes.
Okay.
And I applaud them every day because they opened up in today's market. They opened
Tough.
up. And when you open up in today's market, you have to compete on price.
Mm-hmm.
Until you get your name established, until you get your standards, your reputation,
Yeah.
you have to compete on price. So there's some great people opening up right now that are playing a price game that will up the game as they go along.
Ah, yeah. So that
Um,
you're talking, someone's getting the foot in the door as a
yeah,
new funeral home, and that's going to be so hard when there's funeral homes around 50 years, 100 years.
yeah,
It's a very
but
tough competition.
yeah, but the cost of entry into ownership now is probably at the lowest it's ever been.
Talk
I could
about
either
that.
do virtual or I could do storefront. I
Okay.
could
Yeah.
get my foot in the door,
Yeah. Yeah.
and grow my reputation. And yes, I'm going to have to bring them in on price and kill them on service and build my reputation one family at a time.
Yeah.
Um, so I do applaud those people and don't want to take anything away from them.
No, not at all. Of course not. It's
Right.
a hustle. One of my good friends that's a funeral director. He actually bought one of our funeral homes close to where I live, actually, and he did the route of renting our funeral home. He did it for
Yeah.
15 years, and he built up his business. And finally, he was at a point. He was like, I want to take the plunge and like do this for myself. I want to do the real thing. And we were at a time where we were transitioning, some retiring going on, blah blah blah, like all that stuff. And that's the way of the game. It took him that long period of time, 15 years, to build up enough business where he felt comfortable. He's like, okay, if I have this plus a full location, advertising, the whole, you name it, I'm going to be okay. So it does,
Right.
people don't want to hear that though, because we live in such a instantaneous culture where we all want it now, now, now. It takes time.
Right.
It takes effort, and it takes a grind, and you can't give up. You absolutely
Oh,
can't, because
no.
you're done then.
Yeah. So let's get back to marketing though,
Let's do it.
because I got to tell you, I first came across you on TikTok,
Oh God. Okay.
and learning what the longer casket crank was for 30 years, didn't realize what it was for, never
Oh,
understood it.
what a
Um,
gift! What a gift I gave you, learning about the
yeah.
long casket key.
And I think my directors get irritated with me, like, hey, watch this TikTok.
Yeah.
Um, but our consumer is watching,
Yeah.
and we could produce good commercials, and with a good company, they could get out. They could be relevant,
Yep.
educational, and not so much just about my funeral home and we're compassionate and we're caring. The marketing has to change.
Yawn.
Yeah,
Yawn.
we have such an audience with hospice that to
Okay.
do a TikTok aimed at a hospice of, 3 things not to say to somebody once their loved ones died,
Yeah.
or what happens from the point of hospice to the funeral home,
Mm-hmm.
and involve the hospice. We have so many ways we could reach out now
Yeah.
and partner with assisted livings and everything to really show a unity and a continuity of care between the two facilities.
Yeah. That's part of the whole process too.
Yeah. And so marketing has changed so much. Grassroots marketing used to be, let's go hang some posters somewhere, and if they
Yep.
get torn down, no big deal.
Yep.
Now there's no reason not to do grassroots. It's at your fingertips every day.
Yep. Absolutely.
But when you outsource it, you're getting great material, getting great content, but what you're getting is a consistency coach.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that is the greatest thing because, I may do some Facebook postings, but then I get busy at the funeral home and you don't see me for a month.
Yep. Yep.
There was no coach saying, hey, you got to get some content.
Yeah.
You got to do this. So the consistency coach is really a benefit y'all offer that a lot of funerals may not recognize at first.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
it's so important. You have to stay on top of it. And like you said, Jeff, we get very distracted, and not for any reason other than that we're working hard. It's not like we're not doing anything. It's always the case that funeral directors are always, busting their chops trying to get stuff done. And it's unfortunate that the biggest, most important things usually get put to the wayside. We get caught up doing these little minute tasks, and it's like, we need to focus on the bigger picture more times and really run things like a business. Like I'm obsessed with funeral home marketing. I'm obsessed with business planning. I'm obsessed with growing businesses because I didn't realize it when I first started. I was like, okay, I'm going to make every removal. I'm going to embalm every body. I'm going to meet with every family. Then I'm going to go online and advertise for us. I'm going to go into the community. I'm going to participate in every event. I'm going to do anything possible. Like, I'm going to do every little thing that you can imagine. And I read books like, I don't know if you ever read E-Myth. It's one of the most infamous business books of all time. And his quote is, don't work in the business, work on the business. What does that mean? On the business means we're doing the big picture stuff that's going to guide the business to the future. So that way we're not having to do the little things like running around, getting death certificates, stuff like that we can hire out when we're making enough money. So that way we can continue to work on big stuff that's going to move the needle and continue the business forward. So we get so distracted about doing these things, and it's our passion, our love. But if we're trying to grow a business, we have to work on that business.
Yeah. And just know, like, when you see me do a Canva post, it took me 2 hours to figure out that Canva post. 2 hours I didn't have.
Yep.
But as to where a marketing company could pop that out for you while you're embalming on a removal, serving a family, it's just amazing. But the other reason that I learned early in the game not to read the comments.
100%.
There are so many haters out there that the first time you post something, the haters just come out of the woodwork.
They flock. Yeah. They smell the blood and they're there.
And if you read it, it gets in your head and prevents you from going forward.
It does.
And so that's why I liked hiring out a service, because whoever was hating on them, not me.
Not my work.
But that was the hard thing to get over, and I think a lot of people can't get over that. A lot of funeral directors, when they post something, won't be able to get over a negative comment.
Yeah.
They won't post again.
Not worth your energy, not worth your time. People are going to be they're just all over. They're haters. And they don't have anything better to do, and they're gonna come after you.
Yeah. So I compare hiring out a service when we first looked at it, it was expensive, but believe it or not, it was my receptionist who said, "Hey, remember you didn't want that big photocopier for $1,000 a month lease.
Yeah.
But then once we got it, you loved it and you won't get rid of it now."
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, I didn't know I needed it."
Sometimes that's what it takes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no doubt
But
about it.
I learned, you'll hear me say it in any speech I do, strategic patience.
Okay.
If you can get involved with a campaign, 3 to 6 months, don't do anything below that. You will not have a measurement.
Yeah, you're not getting enough data to determine any sort of result. And
Yeah.
it's so important we need to look at the actual numbers and not be obsessed with having a slow week or something like that. That happens all the time in our business when we're marketing for funeral homes. It's, if someone has a slow week, it's like, you got to have your patience. You got to, like,
Right.
this stuff compiles over time and it gets bigger and better and better and better. And just like growing your business, like we talked about earlier, Jeff, like, you need the patience to see things through. And then when you see those results, you're like, oh wow, like this. It's just like anything in life, really. It's, you need to build on what you're doing and become better and better. And when you look at yourself back 10 years, or just like in your career, I'm sure, like, when you could think back into when you were first licensed, you're a completely different funeral director, completely different business owner, marketer. Everything has got to be so drastically different, and that's the compounding that happens.
Yeah. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was a gentleman who told me, if you're not embarrassed by what you were doing 2-3 months ago, then you're going in the wrong direction.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
So I always look back and like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I thought that. But so it keeps you going. And I think I've been in the profession long enough, 30 plus years now,
Yeah.
to see all these great changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know at some point I'm going to be looking at a young apprentice as an old man saying, "You start the hologram. I don't even know how to get that thing going." I mean, it's amazing to watch how fast we grow, but yet how stubborn we are to step out of our comfort zones, both financially and emotionally.
Yeah.
To grow our profession.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, especially when you're doing things the same way for a long time. It's just the easier way. And the easier way is not the better way. It almost like 99% of the time is not. Because things hurt a little bit before they get better, and then they get way better. Then something's going to hurt again, and then you improve and you're going to get better. That's the same deal as what we're talking about.
Yeah, and the one thing I couldn't get past, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, well, our customer won't like that ad, or this is what we've been doing for so many years.
Yeah.
Truth is, no matter what you do, that customer that's been using you is still going to use you.
Correct.
So when I reach out on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, I'm looking for new customers. That's me fishing for new customers because I already got this one.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for a replacement ratio. I want to make sure that for every one person I buried today, that I have somebody for at least another year or so coming back to me.
Right. It's about accumulating more of that business, as opposed to, if you're doing your service correctly and to the best of your ability, those families are coming back. So if you're trying to grow, you need to expand into new areas and find new people that you weren't targeting in the past. It's obviously still good to maintain that relationship, build it over time. That's huge, super important to do too. But if you want new business, you have to do new things too.
Yeah, I think it was Winnie the Pooh that said, "Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other's gold."
Yes, that's good.
Look, anytime I could fit a quote for Winnie the Pooh into a business podcast, I love it.
That's a good deal. I'd love to know more about your career. So tell me about the early days, and then where did you go and how did you get to where you are now?
When I first started in mortuary school in Dallas, at that point, the funerals had an A schedule or a B schedule. A was always be there, or B was be there all the time. Those were your two choices.
Right.
And I loved being a funeral director, and I got to learn from some of the best funeral directors. When I started my career in Dallas, in Chicago, probably worked for one of the most, innovative, I mean, the guy I worked for in Chicago was on the forefront of everything. He was just incredible. He knew which direction the market was going. He knew how to act to get in front of it.
Yeah, what a
I
good
mean,
role
he was just
model.
a brilliant person with that.
Yeah.
Um, and I got to really work with him and learn a lot of that thing that nobody else would teach you, because everybody else was teaching you stay the course, don't do this,
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
This guy was like, hey, let's try. Let's just see what
Yeah.
happens.
Right. What's the harm? Yeah.
Yeah. So throughout my career, I've emulated a lot of his thought process.
That's cool.
But in 2001, I found myself leaving a corporation and going on my own.
Yeah.
And I remember the first month we had 4 funerals in a month. Like, my wife and I went out for a lobster dinner. It was incredible. But we kept growing, and I'm a very impatient person. And my ADD kicks in. So I just wanted to keep expanding, not to grow my funeral homes, but to grow my community that I could serve.
Right.
Because my idea of success was going to my daughter's softball game and having to shake everybody's hand that I'd served.
Yeah.
All the parents that I had served.
That's
going
true.
to the delicatessen and not being able to sit down for 5 minutes because I got to hug everybody that I've served in the community. I mean,
sure.
For me, it was all about that high of showing up at the door at 2 a.m. like I was ready for the call, dressed, to a T, letting the families know I was there. I was never and still not a monetarily driven person, which is really dangerous for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because when you don't care about losing it all, you're willing to try anything.
That's a good point. Yeah.
If it could serve the family better. So when I opened up, it was strictly, this is me. This is who you get. 2 a.m, at 8 a.m, at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
I was so stubborn about getting to know people. I didn't use register book stands because I wanted to hold the register book and walk around the funeral and have people sign it.
Wow.
So I could get
That's
FaceTime.
Next level. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so simple.
Yeah, sure is. Yeah.
Because I'm sure you see it in your family's funeral. You see the same people over and over again.
You sure do. Yeah.
So every time, no register stand, I got to walk around, got to say hi to Mr. Smith and, talk about his wife and everything. I mean, you just got to know everybody. So I enjoyed that part. But I learned early on what I was saying to the family in a 10 by 10 room was nothing compared to how I was treating their guest.
Okay.
At the funeral.
Okay.
That was really, for me, the best time to advertise, to market, to show the wow factors of what we do.
Yeah.
And I didn't invent anything. I just started things up, making sure nobody ever had to touch a door handle at our location.
That's, huge. Yeah. But
it's not new.
It's not new. That's something that my great grandfather was doing, and it's something that gets lost over time. And it's like, it's that little stuff that people they're gonna notice it. They really are, because they're not getting that service. Almost nowhere besides maybe like a very nice restaurant. Why can't we do it at our funeral homes? Yeah.
So
it's old school.
It became such a game to me of trying to predict how this is going to work. And so live streaming videos, live streaming the service was great, and it was innovative. But for me, buying a $300 TV and taking it to the nursing home down the street and saying, hey, you don't have to bring your people to the services anymore.
Wow.
To do that. Had no idea that with a $300 investment, that nursing home started referring everybody to me.
Little things.
Because I offered this service.
Yeah. Genius. Genius.
Yeah. So it was always about just finding ways to outdo my competitors.
Yep.
When it came to service. And that's just watch what people want. And we were able to do it.
That's amazing. So all that was at your funeral home in Dallas, is that correct?
That Dallas and Houston.
And so what happened with those funeral homes, and what led you to where you are?
And I'm sure they're going to watch this and be upset I'm even talking about, but I wanted to go big.
Yeah.
I felt like I was playing small. I wanted to go big.
Okay.
So reached out to a group of investors.
Yeah.
We won't call them venture capitalists, but reached out to a group of investors.
Sure.
And they brought in so much money that I stopped thinking of different ways, because we now had money to just spend and sponsor the Houston
Right.
Rockets and,
Right.
I mean, do some high-end stuff.
Yeah.
And it really worked. It really did, but financially was not working the way we thought it would.
Uh-huh.
And whenever you take on investors, it's a whole new game.
It sure
I mean,
is.
you're
Yeah.
now responsible for other people's money that they've worked really hard to earn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And after 5 years, realized, okay, this isn't going the direction I wanted. And this is hard to admit, but I realized I was the one in the way.
Oh yeah, that's hard.
And that is, as here I am, I got this title, COO and everything. And I remember it was November 17th, looking around the room going, I'm the problem. I'm the one in the way of growth, because I have this in my head and I'm being so headstrong that I'm not listening to others.
What do you think it was? Like, what aspect do you think that you were in the way of? How so?
I wanted to hold on to this dream of service and price.
Okay.
And I was willing to die on that stake that we could somehow figure that out.
Yeah.
And they were like, you got to figure one direction or the other. This isn't working.
Yeah.
With both. And I kept fighting them. And I just remember being at the meeting going, oh my gosh, I'm the problem.
Man, that takes some insight and some foresight, and to look inward. I always love thinking about that kind of stuff. It's sometimes you
go in a dark place for a year or two. I mean,
sure
like
you
you just realize, man, what just happened?
Wow.
But at the end of the day, I got a funeral director's license in my back pocket. So the worst thing that could happen is I end up doing a job I love.
Right, exactly.
So really, I mean,
win-win.
Yeah, exactly. And, at least if I'm ever sitting around talking to a group of young people and saying, this is what I did, instead of I should have done this, or
don't live with the regret. No way.
Yeah.
No way.
But that was a hard lesson. Is sometimes you could be your own enemy.
I'm sure. And then did you went to Nashville to start your own, or did you go straight to Park Lawn? What happened with that?
Starting your own business and riding that entrepreneurial train, you're seeing it.
Yeah.
It is the biggest rush of nervousness, excitement, paranoia. Yeah,
roller coaster. Crazy.
Yeah, and no sleep. The nights you get sleep, you're worried about, why did I sleep through that? What did I miss? And I just couldn't do it to myself again. I mean, that is a hard roller coaster.
Yeah, it is.
And when you get off that ride, it's like, I don't want back on. I want to do the job I love. I want to focus on the families. But now my bigger focus as a general manager for Park Lawn is I want to grow other funeral professionals and make sure they're seeing the value they have.
No doubt, yeah.
And not become, I mean, when you watch Banfield Veterinary Clinics and Castle Dental and all these places, we could easily get wiped out if we're not watching.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's just working with my funeral directors to make sure they understand they are the value, that, to each family. And it's not about how many families you meet; it's about how many you serve.
Absolutely, it goes back to that. How many you helping? It's It's different.
I love working with funeral directors now, but I love promoting the profession, because
Me too.
We are in a dangerous spot, people. I can't tell you my dentist's name, because I go to this place, there's like 8 dentists in the office, and whoever's first available, my hairstylist, you may be able to tell, is usually first available on the day I need
I don't know about that. It's looking very fresh to me.
But we don't have those personal relationships anymore. We're now buying insurance from a Cartoon General or a Geico Gecko. We're not doing it from Stan down the road that we've known for years.
Yeah.
So I need funeral professionals to realize we are in that group that could be next.
It's almost every industry has gone that way. And we've done a job, whether it's great, bad, medium, I don't know. We've done a job of keeping it not that way for a long time, when everywhere else got scooped up. We have to be
Yeah.
aware that there is a possibility, and not that it's a bad thing, because you can still make that impact and make that difference. It might just be look a little bit differently than it
Right.
did at the beginning of your career. There's no right
Yeah.
or wrong about that, in my opinion.
So I always look at the one ends. I always look to see who's hiring, what they got hiring.
Yeah.
And I've started seeing this new thing of non-licensed funeral arranger.
Okay.
And every time I see it,
What
my heart
state?
just breaks. Yeah, and let me tell you, it's in the states that require a license.
So how? Oh, well, what happened? How is that possible?
Because what they're doing is they're making the funeral director the least important person in the room. They're only there because they have a license in their back pocket. But it may be this other person who's better at sales
Yeah.
meeting the family.
Yeah. To upsell. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know we as funeral directors don't
Scary.
like the word sell, but we are our value.
Yeah.
You know, it's Picasso's napkin for our embalmers. You know, have you ever heard about Picasso's napkin?
No, tell me about it.
Lady goes into a cafe and sees Pablo Picasso sitting there, and she's like,
Okay.
you know, I hate to bother you, but can you draw a picture of a dog on this napkin for me? And he goes, well, sure. 5 minutes, draws a picture of a dog, hands it to her, and he's like, that'll be $100.
Uh-huh.
She's like, it took you 5 minutes. And he's like, no, that took me 30 years.
I have heard this. Yes. Yes.
So we need to start looking. We went to school. We've learned a trade. We see stuff most people don't see. There is value in
And
what
no
we
one
do.
wants to see it either. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just we can't settle, and we can't let anybody realize that it's up to us with the funeral directors.
Man, that is just so well said and so
Yeah.
true that we need to continue to get better, so that way we can do our best for our families, so
Yeah.
that way we can continue to do what we do best, and it
Exactly.
doesn't go a different route. It doesn't go down these scary routes that, like you're talking about. We want that security, and that's, I mean, a lot of funeral directors, that's why they do get into this industry, is because there is some sense of security, because you know the job security is a lot probably better than you would find in other industries, because it's so stable. It's not consistent,
Yeah.
but it's stable, that it's
Right.
going to continue to happen forever and ever and ever, and people like that feeling. But we cannot be complacent in the way that we're doing things. We need to be constantly getting better, doing things that are going to improve ourselves, our funeral home. It all comes back to the family. It all comes back to the service. And that's the way we can just do it, so we can just get better. And that's why I love talking about this stuff. I love doing our videos and podcasts and all that stuff, because together we can make a huge difference in our whole community. We're not competitors and by any means over the course of time. It's, we need to work together on this stuff, and that's what makes the big impact.
That's why we're counting on you at Mortuary Marketing to share our story and to put it out there.
We're trying out here, that's for sure.
Man.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on today.
Such a lot of fun. We love your energy. We love your spirit. You can feel that spirit. And it's that spirit that a lot of us have, the funeral director spirit, the entrepreneurial spirit, those of us that like that business side of things. It's such a fun industry to be in, because there's so many ways that you can do it. You can love the science end, you can love being with families, you can love emotional business. Doesn't matter. There's a place for everyone in funeral service. And we feel that spirit. But Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time. What a fun conversation. And I learned a lot. I think our listeners will too.
All right. I'll see you on TikTok.